Honourable Member for Kelowna-Lake Country.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll be splitting my time with the Honourable Member from Abbotsford. I rise today to speak on Bill C18, which will implement the Canada-United Kingdom Trade Continuity Agreement. The United Kingdom is Canada's third largest export market, our fifth largest trading partner, our oldest ally, who we have $29 billion worth of bilateral trade annually. And it'll be critically important that the Minister of International Trade work closely with her UK counterpart to begin formal negotiations on a truly new and comprehensive free trade agreement.
From CANZUK International, I'm Matt Lavault, and this is the Kanzuk Podcast. In this series, we will explore the potential union between Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom. How can this alliance increase freedom of movement, free trade, and foreign policy cooperation between these four countries? To talk more on this issue, I welcome Mrs. Tracy Gray, a Conservative Member of Parliament representing the Kelowna-Lake Country in the province of British Columbia in Canada. Thank you for accepting this interview.
Hi, Matthew. Nice to be here.
So, Mrs. Gray, as a Canadian public servant, what intrigued you the most about CANZUK and its mission?
Oh, well, this was something that originally was, when I first heard about it, was through our leader, Aaron O'Toole, as he was speaking about it when he was during the leadership race. And of course, he has continued to speak about it. And at the time, I started looking into it. And then I was, introduced to CANZUK International and have followed a number of different webinars. And, of course, it does fall within my portfolio as well with export promotion and international trade. So it's something that is, it's like an inspirational, initiative that has a lot of merit. And it's something that, as I talk to more people about, there does seem to be a lot of general interest about it.
And as the vice chair for the Standing Committee on International Trade, you mentioned how the Biden administration's Buy American policies would hurt Canadian businesses and workers. So do you think that an agreement between the CANZUK nations could ultimately benefit Canadians?
Well, the thing that with a CANZUK relationship is that it goes beyond trade. I mean, we already have, trading relationships, both bilateral and unilateral arrangements, but this is more about like-minded countries coming together that have common values, common law, similar goals to work together. When you talk about a country like the United States, they're a superpower on their own. And of course, they're a very important country to Canada. They're our largest trading partner. It's one of the major reasons why we, as the official opposition, just recently put forth a motion, which was accepted, to start a new committee that is a Canada-US Economic Relations Committee, because there's a lot of opportunities, but also a lot of issues in many industries that we have having to do with pipelines, as you mentioned, Buy American. We've got softwood lumber, we've got tariffs, we've got investigations, and it's really important for us to have that economic partnership work and to sort of take some time to focus on it. That committee just got up and running this week. The work will start soon, so that's really good to hear. But when we're talking with CANZUK, these are other countries that we have a lot of alignment with, and we can work on with similar objectives, whether it's movement of people, or us working together on international matters with a smaller group, that we can be more nimble and maybe have some common initiatives that we work towards.
And so I want to go more into the specifics. So you voted in favor of Bill C18, which is an act to implement the agreement on trade continuity between Canada and the United Kingdom. So what are the key details regarding this bill, and how could it lead up eventually to a CANZUK deal?
So C18 is, you're absolutely right, it is a trade arrangement. Right now, the stage that it's at the committee stage, and so we're focusing on, we're listening to witnesses, we're going through clause by clause. But the arrangement is basically, is basically done. It's been negotiated. The government has negotiated. Now we have to go through the parliamentary processes. What'll come out of that then is is working towards a new comprehensive trade agreement, because this really, C18, what we're talking about, the Canada UK trade continuity agreement, it's really a rollover of CETA, and so there's not a lot of differences there. You know, what we've heard from many industries is that they would like to see some amendments moving into a more modern and trade agreement that deals with a lot of the modern issues that industries are having, such as non-tariff barriers. There's a number of industries that would like to see some changes, and so that'll come into the next trade agreement. That the way that it's written, the two governments have to get to the table within a year of this agreement being signed, and then they've got 3 years to come to a new agreement. So this one is really very similar to what the existing agreement is right now with CETA.
And Mrs. Gray, because the global economy is facing obviously severe challenges due to COVID-19, do you think it's more important now than ever to solidify our trading partners' market accesses?
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, we do have a number of trade agreements, and what we hear over and over again is from many industries and organizations is to make those trade agreements work and work better. And so that'll be a good focus to look at. What's working. You can have a trade agreement that's a good trade agreement, but then there might be these non-tariff barriers that might restrict trade, or there might be other regulations that come up that might make trade not available, or take considerably longer because there might need to be different certifications. An example of a non-tariff barrier is something like labeling, where all of a sudden there has to be different packaging, or there has to be different processes in some level of production that then aren't met. So you can have this trade, or maybe even have quotas, but then there can be these other regulations that come on that then actually make them not work. So those are the kind of things that that I've heard that many industries would like there to be some focus on, to actually get some of those existing trade agreements working better.
And talking about your constituents now, you presented a petition saying that nearly 500,000 pensioners are in receipt of the UK state pension, which is currently frozen, and Canada has 128,000 pensioners. Why is it important that the UK government unfreeze the UK state pension worldwide?
Yeah, when I got elected, one of the very first meetings that I had with a constituent who I hadn't met before was someone that brought to my attention that there are a number of people from Britain that have moved to Canada, and they're pensioners. And right now, them living in Canada, Britain doesn't have a way that they increase their pensions over time. So their pensions are basically frozen. And so we have these people that are living here that have frozen pensions, but that's not the case in other countries. And so, they brought that to my attention. And I know that they've been speaking to MPs from all across the country saying, we live here. Many of them have become Canadian citizens as well. And, this isn't, it's inequitable. It's not fair. And so there were a number of local residents of mine that did put together a paper petition, which I did on their behalf. You bring to Ottawa and table in the House of Commons. And I know that there's a number of work that is being done. There's a national organization that's been advocating to the government. We've heard that there are MPs in the United Kingdom as well that are very aware of this, that are advocating within, because it is ultimately a decision that their government has to make. And so it's one of those topics that sometimes you get elected and you didn't know about beforehand, and all of a sudden it's something that's brought forth, and you realize it actually does affect a number of your constituents.
And so do you think there should be a social security agreement that should be implemented in order to protect the financial well-being of, say, Kanzuk citizens in retirement?
Well, I think for something like that, I mean, ultimately it is, it is up to the UK. It is citizens that have worked in their country, but I have heard stories from people that, it's not equitable, and so it's something that they should look at. I know that there's been a number of questions in the House of Commons on this, and a number of people that have written in. So I think it's definitely on everyone's radar. And it's good that everyone's opening up the conversation and trying to find ways for it to work.
And so let's talk about Kanzuk's report within the Canadian Parliament. Obviously, for the opposition leader, Aaron O'Toole, it's a big part of his platform. But from your colleagues, say the Liberals, the NDP, have you heard anything about Kanzuk and them supporting this idea?
Well, right now, I mean, if we think of, say, the last year, we've been all pretty focused on the pandemic,
Right.
and, dealing with a full health and economic crisis. But as we look forward, coming out of this and looking at economic recovery, for us, this is just, something that, like I said, it's an aspirational initiative. And so it's not something that is, in policy at this point. It's a matter of talking to a lot of people, seeing, what the support is, what the opportunity is. I'll just give you, one example. In my riding of Kelowna-Lake country, we have a ski hill here called Big White. And a lot of the people that work there are from Australia. And of course, because of the summer, winter, it works really well. They work there and then they work here for half of the year. And the ski hill is 45 minutes from Kelowna, but a lot of the young adults here don't want to be driving that road every day. And so they do need to find workers from somewhere else. And it works to get a lot of young adults from Australia. But every year it's very cumbersome. There's quite a process. And of course, we do know as well that there's a number of young adults that want to take gap years and travel and maybe work in other countries. So, this is one way that maybe we can look at, there are processes in place now, but, maybe how can we streamline those, and how can we maybe make them work better from a mobility point of view?
And speaking of the gap year, for students, of course, a lot of Canadian students want to visit the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand. This could ultimately benefit college students as well, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, there are, ways that people can do that now, but this is just maybe taking another look at it to see how it can maybe work even a little bit better. And so these are the conversations that, we're just starting to initiate now. How might that work? Is there interest? What would it look like? So I would say those conversations are pretty early days, but, in general, there does seem to be a lot of interest in this. And again, going to within countries that are, that are safe, that are like-minded, that have similar values and similar laws. And so there is some attractiveness to that for sure.
And in terms of foreign policy within these countries, could a joint diplomatic cooperation help put pressure on countries like the United States and China, who have upper hand in terms of trade negotiations?
Well, one of the things with considering something like this is that, again, we might have similar issues that maybe we're all dealing with, on an international level. And so it's a way of coming together and maybe working together. Of course, we do have, already we've got trade relationships. We do have security and safety relationships. We're all part of the Five Eyes group already, which deals with security and national security. So this just maybe solidifies it in a different way that we can work together on dealing with different regimes that we all might have similar issues with, and have some alignment that we can come together and work together on.
And Mrs. Gray, do you think that an all-party parliamentary group for Kanzuk in Ottawa can be envisionable in the near future?
Well, I think you can start a all-party group on almost anything. So, I'm sure there'd be interest for something like that. I don't know if those conversations are happening, but I've been involved in a number of groups because a lot of them haven't been sitting over the last year, right? Because we've been so focused on other things.
Right.
So as we maybe get into more of a normalized work schedule here, there might be other opportunities to have have conversations. But ultimately it's up to reaching out within communities and within business groups and different organizations to see what their thoughts are. Those are where the best ideas come from.
And Mrs. Gray, before you go, do you think that Canadians will embrace the idea of a Kanzuk alliance, or will it take a lot of convincing to do?
Well, I think, as we come out of this time and we're focusing on economic recovery, people are looking at wanting to travel again. Where are they going to want to travel to? Again, work mobility, students going to school and working in other countries. I was on a plane recently, sitting beside a lovely young woman that's in school. She's in the university in Ontario, and she was going to go to an international university, but of course that hasn't happened this past year. And she said I still could, but literally I would still be doing it from my bedroom. So she goes, I'd be paying all this extra money, but either way, I'm still in my house. So, as things start opening up, as our safety protocols open up, and we're looking at where do people want to travel to, where do they want to work, where do they want to go to school, this is just another way of looking at an opportunity that might be a good way for us to collaborate and, again, be around like-minded countries that maybe we can come together and have some commonality that might work in a whole number of ways, whether it's people mobility, trade, which again, we already have those arrangements, but maybe a way that we can focus in other ways, and also from a safety perspective.
Mrs. Gray, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow CANZUK International on Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And for more information on Kanzuk, look up kanzukinternational.com for more up-to-date insight on the current events surrounding this project. Until next time.